Hey guys, welcome to the channel. Today we will be talking about a beginner's guide for Dragonheir Silent God, which just released on Globals a couple of days ago. And I'm still on the second day, nothing much has been done, but for those of you who've just joined this game or people who have been playing since beta and are wondering about some of the new mechanics or might want a refresher, so this is a guide for you. I'll be doing an in-depth guide on certain areas of the game later down the line when there's a bit more clarity on those. So let's begin. So first off, the Dragonheir Silent God is an RPG/gacha game, and what makes this RPG gacha game different than others is this is a season over season game, meaning that every 3 months you have a season, and once that season ends, you will have new story, new content, new bosses. A lot of things will revert back. So it's basically a 3 months over 3 month period, and you will have something new to do. A lot of the games, other gachas that I've played, 70s, Raid Shadow Legends, etc. A lot of times when you reach end game, there is not much for you to do, and you just spend countless hours in dungeons or farming something or the other, and for that 1% improvement, and you don't really have much content in your way. You're just basically going over. So I do like the concept where you are doing season over season, and this is somewhat of a gated game. So at least for the first month or so, there are resources that are limited, which I'm going to talk more about in the game mechanics. But the moment you start the game, I want to talk about that first, and that will be your beginnings. So the moment you start playing, you will be able to choose your character. So in this case, you will have a choice to make your character. It could be a human, a dwarf, lizard folk, or half human, and you will be able to pick a profession for that character. I personally went with thief, and the reason for that is that you will be stealing a lot of things in the game. Whenever you're talking to an NPC or a merchant, they might have some quest items or general loot that you want to pick up. It's over time, it's not as big a deal. Like after the first month or first 1.5 months, whenever the story is finished, in beta it was, I think, a month storyline, but once it finishes, you don't really need to steal stuff. So this is for early game. This entire thing in no way is going to hinder your progress. The choice selections that you have in the story, they don't really have an effect. If you refuse a quest by accident, you can just accept it later. If you really want to read through the story, you are welcome to do so. You can see if there's any choice, but to my knowledge, there hasn't been a single area of the game where there's a choice that affects the storyline. So what each one of these does is, like, I'm gonna go briefly over it. Strength is basically when you're forging equipment. I'll go deeper into that when I discuss the camp. When you're forging equipment, strength modifier is applied to you forging that. So right now at 10, it's at baseline. If it's below 10, you're going to take a penalty, which will be a negative die roll. If you have more, for example, if you have 14, you're going to take 2 additional die bonus. So for example, like if you see my int, it's at 14 and I'm getting a +2 advantage. This is primarily just for forging equipment. Int is used to craft food. So when you're cooking food, your intelligence roll is checked, and based on that you might get double of the resources that you put into it. So it's a good early on bonus as well. I'm going to talk what food does as well when I move to game resources. Dexterity, like I said, is primarily used for stealing. It makes stealing much easier. You don't have to wait while the steal counter goes down. So the way the stealing works in this game, even if you fail, you will have some gold penalty associated with it, very small in the general picture, but it's not a big deterrent to have dexterity. I just picked it because I just wanted to have everything done quickly, because I did go through the same exact story in the beta. Constitution, Charisma, and Wisdom, these checks are performed when you're talking to certain NPCs. Again, it's not going to affect your story. They might give you a clue to something which would be inconsequential later down the road. It doesn't really matter, so I didn't put any points into that. The way you level up your attributes after the initial start is collecting these horizons, which you will be obtaining through Book of Adventure or quests. Once you collect them, enough of them, you will be able to upgrade it. So that's your basic character. The main character also has these elemental powers, which I will go down when I discuss the affinity system of the game mechanics. I'll be going down into that as well. Identity is your what profession you pick. You can pick thief, actor, and certain other things. Thief, like I said, I wanted to do stealing most of the game. For easy stealing, I picked that. And elemental affinity, I'll discuss deeply when I'm discussing the game mechanics. This is a very important part of the entire game. You basically collect these affinity solvent to boost up the bonus that you receive for your team composition. It has to be a specific team composition for a specific affinity to get that bonuses. And the way you do it is till about, I think it's here, that you start getting 5 affinity bonuses. So 5% of the same elemental affinity will get a particular bonus. So you want a team that has the same 5 elements, or other part of the same same elemental group. And you just need to level one of these to reach here. So you don't think that you have to level each one of these. You just have to. You can pick and choose which one you want to focus on. So for example, if you were lucky to get a lot of fire heroes or poison heroes, you can go this route. Or if you got a lot of lightning or radiance heroes, you can go this route. So the top is attack, the bottom is going to be your HP boost. I will personally be going with attack first, and I'll explain why in a moment when I'm showing you the game mechanics of some other dungeons here. So now let's move on to the game mechanics. The first thing first is how the battles are generally held in this game. There is an in-game tutorial as well, but I'll just give you a brief overview of what exactly is it. So right now I'm in Arena, which I will cover in depth. There have been some changes from the beta, really good changes in my opinion, that has improved the gameplay for the Arena. So as you can see, these are red lines that show which tile I'm gonna put this player in, and he's gonna take that damage. So the purple line is showing me that which unit my unit is going to target, and the red line shows that which enemy unit is targeting which of my unit. So in a typical scenario, you want to check the skills. So for example, if I click her Havita, her battle skill in this case is a 3-tile range, and it goes all the way through. So wherever she is, it'll go all the way through to the end in this specific 3-tile range. So I can place my champion here, and though I'm going to take the basic attacks from her, I'm not going to take the attack from her battle skill. But let's check this guy as well. So this guy's ultimate is going to stun me. It has a chance of stunning me, and it's also in a 3-tile range, and this guy is here. So if I place him here, place my unit here, he's going to take the damage from that ultimate. So I can move him either here, and there is no chance that this guy's ultimate is going to hit me. But now if you look, if I try to move this, this unit is going to attack my support unit. Now I generally don't want that, but it's a small price to take because he's still taking in most of the damage from the damage dealers, right? And I'll cover what qualifies as a damage dealer, what is a support unit, what is a defense unit a bit later. But I want to give you a brief overview of whenever you're going to go into battle, these are the most important things. Whether it's PvE or PvP, you're gonna have to check, what are the battle skills of my enemies, where can I position my units so they have an advantage, and you have to check your own battle skills. So for example, ultimate skill and battle skills. So my Charlac over here, his battle skill deals damage in this particular tile range. So I have to either say like, okay, I'm gonna place him here so he will deal damage to her, but then she has the advantage of taking the damage. So either I can do a trade, or I can just move him here and play it safe. Because how much initial recharge time you have, it's all time based. All the skills are time based, based on the game timer. So some skills will go faster, some skills will go slower. So it's a nuance. It looks complicated, but once you get used to it, it's not that hard. As you progress, you have a specific team, you will learn that team, you will understand what that team does and how you can change the team and for the better. This is something that the more you play, the more you will understand where these skills are being affected and who is it affecting to. So this is the main battle system. Now let's talk about the affinity system. And this is something that this game does really well, specifically because previously I mentioned that this game is a season over season game, and what happens every season is this affinity group changes. So what I mean by that is, right now we have Frost and Summons paired together as one, we have Fire and Poison paired as one, Lightning and Radiance paired as one. So every season this affinity group changes. So next season it would be Frost paired with Radiance, Fire paired with Summons, and Lightning paired with Poison. And it forces you to reconsider this team. If you remember the way I talked about the Psyche Core, you get bonuses for your 5 elemental affinity. Initially these bonuses are for 3 elemental heroes, which is fine, but this 5 hero elemental affinity bonus, I think after 1 month it stacks up a lot, where you cannot ignore it. Especially if you want to be competitive, you can still compete in the game, you can still clear most of the stuff with 3 elemental affinity, but you really need that 5 elemental affinity to really be competitive in this game. So for 3 elemental affinity, what it means is that you can pick one of the Frost units, 2 Frost units and 1 Summon units, all 3 of the Frost units. So, and the same goes for the Summons as well. You can pick 1 Summon, 2 Frost, 2 Summons, 1 Frost, and 3 Summons. It will all count towards the same elemental affinity group. And this system, I think, is probably one of the best because there is no advantage or weakness. So no elemental group is either weak or advantage over the other. In a lot of gachas, you are sometimes forced to change your team because you may have a dungeon where you're fighting a fire boss and your team is lightning, for example, and lightning is weak to fire, or regardless, whatever the affinity is for that particular game. So really focus from the get-go, what team are you going to design. The first few days, if you're just going to summon a lot, or if you're just playing this season casually, you just want to collect as many legendary champions over the season, you're welcome to do so, and you can start the new season fresh and see which elemental heroes that makes most sense to you, or are more accessible to you, that you want to make a team for. All 3 affinity groups can clear all content in the game, regardless of if you have legendaries or not. It will just take you a bit longer to clear those things for somebody who has been lucky with their pulls and have all the legendaries in that particular group. All that matters is that you pick an element and you stick to it at least early on. You have the ability to reset your heroes if you've put more resources into it. So the next stuff that I want to talk about is how this game has its resources spread out. So the first resource is going to be your champions. There are 3 basically kind of champions. One is a support, a defense, and a DPS, or your damage dealer. Each elemental affinity calls its DPS units separately because they each have a specific way they deal more damage. For example, in fire, you have wild units. These wild units, you can read up on it. They have a chance to do higher damage when they perform a successful wild check. So if you're familiar with Dungeons & Dragons, each time you do something, you roll a dice, and if it's above a certain threshold, you pass the check. So if they do that, they have a successful wild, and they're able to do much more. It's like 130% of the damage of the skill. Similarly, for Frost, the DPS is also called Frost. So they do more damage if they have, or they do certain abilities hit harder if they have a Frost on the enemy team. Frost is not freeze. For those of you who are confused by it, I was when I was playing beta. There's a separate debuff called freeze, which freezes frozen, which makes them unable to do anything. So it's a CC. Then you have summons. Summons is called summon as well, the DPS unit. Radiance is called rally, DPS units. Lightning is dauntless, and poison is poison. So this is the way you have the champions in the game. Typically, when you're going to do a fight, so let's go back to arena, so because it's easier to show. A typical team consists of a defense unit, a support unit, and in this case I have 3 DPS, but you can go with the minimum of 2 DPS, and you can add an extra defense unit, which is your tank, or you can add another support unit, depending upon your team, your affinity, what sort of gear you have, what sort of champions you have. This can change. 2 DPS minimum, I would say that you should always focus on. A lot of the game content is timed, so if you're doing a particular dungeon or if you're doing PvP, you need to clear that thing in a specific amount of time. I think each content varies with a certain bit, so I'm not really sure what the exact limit is, but you need to clear each content in a particular given time, else it's counted as a defeat. So you do need champions that are able to do damage. So go at least minimum 2 DPS when you're starting out. The game will give you a lot of helio dice or purple dice, where you will be able to get at least rares and epics more frequently. So briefly going over the roles, each champion of course is going to be different, but the main function of a defense unit is to soak up all the damage. So as you can see here, I want all the red lines if possible going on my defense unit. I could have him in certain sets or whatever, but to help him with that particular damage that he's going to take, or have certain battle skills or artifacts, which I'll discuss a bit later, to help him survive. You will also have your support units, which are able to protect your team, but mainly their function could be very wide. Like, support units in this game are a bunch. You have a lot of support units, and each of them work a bit differently. You want somebody who can either control, so you have some sort of a control debuff on the enemy team, or you want to drain their energy, or you just want them to keep your team survive everything else. So that's the role of a support. You do want at least one of them in there. And then a DPS unit is simple. It's just going to do damage. Typically you want, especially in arena, and I think most of the PvE content, you want some ranged damage units, but it's not as important in PvE. In PvP it's really important to have range unit, because if I have a damage dealing unit, a DPS unit, which is very squishy, he will die immediately if he's on the front lines. I typically want them to be here behind my support, so they can continuously deal damage as you have and everything else. So next resource, let's talk about these. So let's talk about the stones first. So these Windmarrow stones, actually this one is the easiest. So Dragon Crystal. There is basically no function up till now of dragon crystals besides it being used to convert into Weirmarrow stone. So this is, I don't know what their function is, but this is basically a purchase currency, as you can see, and this just simply is converted to Weirmarrow. Weirmarrow you do get a lot. You get it through quests, exploration. There are a bunch of different ways to get Weirmarrow. In the whole season, last season that I did as a beta, I don't remember, but it was in tens of thousands Weirmarrow that I was able to collect over the course. Your gold. So what is Weirmarrow used for? It is basically every day you can replenish your stamina. So you can buy 4 staminas. Either you can do that, or you can purchase dice. So if you go to an exchange shop, actually if you go to store, I'm sorry, or was it exchange? Yeah, so daily supply store. So you're able to buy these items with Weirmarrow. Your alliance rally ticket is to create an alliance, 1 million gold, which I don't think you should buy. 60 stamina. If you're free to play and this is your first season, I would say, even if it's not your first season, I say just refrain from it. You want to collect as many Helio dice as possible. Master Scroll, the game is pretty generous with scrolls. It can be a little RNG, but I think by the second month or so, there are events. Once the second month is over, there's otherworldly exploration, and you do get decent amount of these Master Scrolls. So ideally, if you're free to play, just buy the Helio dice. Be happy with it. The game doesn't give you that many Helio dice. I think it's 40 to 60 per season, somewhere around that. It was in beta, maybe more in the season. But you do get a lot of Weirmarrow, so you can just simply convert it, buy the dice, and summon champions. And there are 2 types of dice in this game. There is a golden dice or orange dice, whatever you want to call it. These are called the Helioid summon, and then there's a starlight invocation. Couple of things important to note. You cannot get a legendary from this. I have 339. I don't think I need it. This is saved whenever a season is over. You carry this around with you. Weirmarrow is saved. Your Helioid is saved. So if you whatever you gain during a season, this will not be deleted when the next season starts. Same with any champions. Whichever champion you summon, you will keep those champions. Their level will just be 1. If you've booked their skills, if you use scrolls on their skills, you will keep those scrolls. There's nothing going away. So these ones, they will be typically used. You do get them a lot, like it's like ridiculous amount in the previous one, but you do get them a lot, like it's a ridiculous amount of them. And you are able to summon rares, and whenever you get a dupe. So I do want to show about this one resource, which is easier to show if I just summon this. I love the summoning animation. They changed it from the beta. So whenever you summon a dupe champion for epics rares, they're straight away converted into Essence of Creation, and you're able to get these. These are used to level up artifacts. These are not your gear items. These are special items, which I'm going to show a bit later. And you also are able to collect another currency, which is not showing here because I have exhausted the exchange shop. So in the exchange shop, these are artifacts. So you buy them typically with these imprint stones, which you get for summoning a dupe. So if you summon a duplicate champion, which is a rare, you're going to get this imprint stone. For epics, you will be getting this one, imprint stone 2, and for legendary ones, you will be getting soul imprints. You will always get these. You will not get these if you've already exhausted the shop, which I have no idea why. I think there should be something separate here for rares and epics. Let me convert them to gold or something. I don't really mind, but I should be able to collect them, similar to what I have with soul imprints for legendaries. So you use these soul imprints. So in this case, they want a soul imprint of a lightning legendary hero. And let me discuss soul imprints real quick. Then we go back to discussing the other resources. So a soul imprint is inspiration levels. So for each duplicate champion that you convert, you are able to inspire them, and each inspiration has its own bonuses, and it's different for different type of champions. It can even vary from champion to champion. Some champions have completely different than the other select group. My personal advice, if you do have legendaries and you do summon dupes, just inspire them for now. If you are desperate for an artifact, you can always click this reset inspiration and it will give you out the soul imprint. There is no resources required for this. You can do it over and over. I can do it like right now, like twice. It's not going to change anything. I can just inspire or reset inspiration. So just inspire, and once you figure out which team are you going to use, you can particularly go for a particular relic. I don't necessarily need to use high quality champion inspirations. If you have somebody like a really good champion, don't use their dupes for this artifact shop. Some of these items are by themselves, like it's a separate passive entirely. I'll be doing a tier list for all of them later as well as the season progresses. I think it's a bit too early for me to test out all of them to the full extent, because even if I want to level them up, I can only level them up to 8. There's exclusive artifacts in the game. These are for exclusive champions. You need 2 soul imprints, one of a specific champion related to each of these exclusive items, and a separate, it could be any random dupe that you have. So this is where you will be using most of your dice. Once you get the new champions, duplicate champions, you will be able to convert them and use them. The next resource I'm going to talk about is going to be food. So this is your food items. This is only useful, I think, first 1.5 months of the game. Once you start getting legendary gear, you can pretty much forget about it. But early on, it does help with certain dungeons. For example, if you're missing accuracy on your team, you can prepare a meal. I'll link up a spreadsheet to this video where all the recipes that were known in beta are listed. So if you need help with that, once you specifically make an ingredient, that recipe is saved. And intelligence is used. You use your intelligence bonus. So right now I'm only gonna get 1. Not a big deal. I personally don't really care about that. So that recipe is now saved. That I made this, I can make it again. And this recipe is going to give me cold damage extra 3% for 600 seconds. So that's like 10 minutes. So you can do like a couple of dungeons, at least 3-4 dungeons minimum with this. So that's the food. It's primarily used to either if you're running speed running or anything else. Moving over to the next currency, which is going to be gold. So gold is not kept. No matter how much gold you have saved in the previous season, it is not going to be carried over into the next season. This is a non-preserved item. And again, if you want to check what is reserved and what is not reserved, you can read all about it. Anything that is difficult to get is reserved. So even the exchange shop, these artifacts are reserved. You don't lose them. So that's one thing. Gold in this game, I think the first month was really challenging. You think that you have a lot of gold, but the moment the legendary gear is unlocked, which is I think right after month 1, you are into this position where you don't have enough gold to level up your champions, and it becomes a real struggle. But an important thing to remember there is that sell gear very freely. Like, don't keep bad items. The game actually gives you a lot of gear. By the time the beta season was over, I was like having so much gear I didn't even care about. So sell anything like a bad stat or things you don't want, just sell them, just move on. I'll be doing an entire video on what stats to keep, what champions need what stats. So keep an eye out for that later as well. But so far, you don't need to waste much gold right now. A few days into the game, you will be able to collect epic gear at least. So you have like one team that is fully on epic gear, and that will once that team is established, You can get at least 2 teams on epic gear, and that's more than enough. Once you unlock the legendary gear, I think there's this events in the game, and after a month I think the legendary forge material drop rate increased. This gives you a lot of legendary gear. You get like two legendary items on average from the dungeons, so it becomes very easy to get more and more end game materials after a month. So I think that's where the game is defined. Like the first month is I think within the first few weeks you become mid game, and after month 1 you're end game, and you're doing end game content. There's going to be tower defense type of like where you have different floors. You do 10 floors every day. You're going to have pillars of trials, different kind of end game content, and so the last 2 months is mostly focused on PvP. You're gonna have otherworldly adventures, difficult bosses. The difficulty keeps raising, and it becomes like an end game, and then the server the season ends, and then you start over. So that's where this game is situated. Before we actually move on to the next one, is going to be scrolls. So you need, if I go upgrade, so skill upgrade, I need a champion that has no skills. Okay, so you need legendary scrolls for legendary champions, epic scrolls for epic champions, and rare scrolls for rare champion. Your main character is actually a very versatile unit, if I can find it here. So your main character has a separate scroll. You will be getting those scrolls doing quests and everything else, but over the season, once the season is over, it retains its scrolls. It does not go away. And your main character, if you're starting fresh, is probably one of the best heroes to make you into the synergy, because you can switch the elemental affinity of your main character to fit into that 3-team affinity bonus. Each of these skills are different. The main character, depending upon how many champions you have, what champions you have, can be either really useful or you can neglect it. So for example, like I played the entire beta season and I was lucky enough to get a lot of good champions. I'm not using my main character. But if you're early on, definitely use it. It's a great hero. It's not that it's a bad hero. The next thing that I wanted to talk about, you do get these scrolls from certain events in the game. Every week you will be clearing out certain dungeons. There are more in-game events right now, like for example this Walker trial, which is kind of like a battle pass, didn't exist before, so it is promising more and more. I think legendary scrolls as well. There was some legendary scroll that I saw here. Yeah, so there's one here. I think this is, I'm not sure if there are other areas as well where you are doing a weekly quest to get more scrolls, and once the otherworldly adventures unlocks, you get even more of the scrolls. As the game progresses, as the season progresses, I'm gonna keep you updated if there's any areas which are new and where you can get more scrolls. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all you need to know about the game as on the basics of basics level. I'm going to be doing a separate guide for each of them. Which area do you need to farm? Early on it's going to be mostly goblins and elemental domains. Elemental domains is where you're going to be able to, so for example, if I go here, I can upgrade it. I need these elemental stones. You can click where it is from and it will show you. But first week at least, enjoy the story. Don't feel too much pressure about competing. There's plenty of competing to be done later, but just enjoy the story, unlock all the dungeons, experience the game at your own pace. And if you're really competitive, this game is actually probably has the best competitive aspect besides these two, because this is like the fastest you can collect all of them. It will be registered. But this one, for example, who has the best heroes, you can go in and say like, look, my poison hero is going to be the best. I may not have a really good fire team, but I'm going to compete here, and you do get ranking rewards every week from here. Then there is dungeon racing. Oh, the reset just happened. So then there is dungeon racing, where you can compete with other players on stage 3. How fast are they doing it? You can try to compete with somebody else. It's surprising, but I'm not in it. I have cleared all 3, but I don't think. Maybe it unlocked today. Regardless, I'm not really sure what happened with this, but you are able to compete on a lot of different things. So, for example, like after this is currently locked, but when this is open, you can choose. You can show off your, look, I'm the fastest. I've made the best team here, and you do get 150 win milestones, which isn't a lot, but it's still something. And you do get ranking awards for the tower trials, which is like, you climb up floors and get the rewards from there as well, and you're able to get these ranking rewards. Who was the first person to do it? They do get very, very difficult later on, but yeah. This thing I actually forgot to talk about. This is something that is used for ranking in your season. At the first 2 months, this is primarily driven by the Vortex boss, which, if you've seen the videos, this is the one Poseidon boss that everybody's fighting. And based on your ranking daily, you get a certain amount of pure sands. I think you get pure sands core, whatever it is called. And yeah, so you get it from temporal vortex, and you get it from otherworldly exposure. So how you rank in that, based on that, your overall ranking is selected. And good luck if you don't have Flora, because yeah, that's the most important champion for that. Later on, it actually becomes easier. You do end up with a lot of them. For example, if I go into the exchange shop and the season shop, I still have 255 resources left, and I purchased everything else. I wasn't active at all in the final month of the beta because it was pretty stagnant. You can buy scrolls here as well. Season over season, you can buy more gold if you need it. Gold will not be carried over, so make sure to, if you're early, free to play especially, make sure to spend your resources on things that are reserved season over season. That will give you a better chance of competing. You may not be able to compete this season, but yeah, in the next season you will be able to compete at a better. I'm not gonna say you're gonna match a whale. There's no gacha out there that you can match a whale, but you will be able to compete. I can promise you that. But yeah, that was pretty much it about the game, and an introduction to the game, some of the game mechanics. I will be doing more in-depth guide later on as I progress through the quest myself.